inshallah. Ahmed, where's Ahmed go? Chalo Ahmed. चलें? अमन ने किधर ने? अहमद के मोहम्मद से, अच्छा मोहम्मद चलें? गए हो कोई? He knew.
Wait, okay.
So, got mixed up.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحرموا طيبات ما أحل الله لكم ولا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين. وكلوا مما رزقكم الله حلالا طيبا واتقوا الله الذي أنتم به مؤمنون. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما عقدتم الأيمان. فكفارته إطعام 10 مساكين من أوسط ما تطعمون أهليكم أو كسوتهم أو تحرير رقبة. فمن لم يجد فصيام 3 أيام ذلك كفارة أيمانكم إذا حلفتم واحفظوا أيمانكم كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تشكرون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. إنما يريد الشيطان أن يوقع بينكم العداوة والبغضاء في الخمر والميسر ويصدكم عن ذكر الله فهل أنتم منتهون. وأطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول واحذروا فإن توليتم فاعلموا أنما على رسولنا البلاغ المبين. ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جناح فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا وآمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ثم اتقوا وأحسنوا والله يحب المحسنين. صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. The recitation was related to the topic of today. The topic of today, as you can see, is the harms of gambling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in this very ruku, mentions the harms of gambling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Rijs min amal shaitan," that it is impurity and it is from the works of shaitan. What are the harms of it? Inshallah, our Hafiz Sahib will explain. Do we have Hafiz Shayab anywhere? No Hafiz Shayab. So inshallah we'll get into the thick of it. Inshallah, is he here? No. Inshallah, without any more delay, inshallah, I'll pass it on to Hafiz Suhail. And inshallah, he can introduce himself and give you the details, inshallah.
No, I'm okay. I just need to see slightly. Just put it that way. That's it. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala rasulihil kareem. This is the second time I've come to Jamea Masjid to do this talk. The first one was just after lockdown. Unfortunately, we didn't have this much of attendance there, but nevertheless, it's always good to come back here. Just like drugs, alcohol, gambling has always been around, and it is explicitly forbidden in our deen. However, we know we live in a society where gambling is legal, and unfortunately, addiction or any kind of harm doesn't take place in a vacuum. So we are products of our environment. Now, I work for an organization called the Beacon Counselling Trust, which is based in Liverpool, where we cover the Northwest. And one of our largest programs that we support is the Gambling Harm Prevention Program. So I work with, my project is called the Breaking the Sharam Project, which is aimed at targeting South Asian communities, okay? So although gambling is low-key in our communities, the harm is greater. The harm is greater in our communities, okay? So I work with families, individuals. I also do workshops, trainings, and work with local councils in trying to develop a strategy to access communities which don't normally access support. So drugs, alcohol, support or referrals are very low in black and minority ethnic communities, okay? Next slide. These are some of the organizations that I've worked with, NHS, Lancashire, South Cumbria, Muslim Youth Helpline. So I train their staff in identifying gambling, gaming, and crypto harm. Okay, when they ring the helpline, try to identify who's suffering from what, and different local authorities. Okay, most recently Manchester City Council, Gamble Aware. Gamble Aware are the organization, it's good to know this, who are responsible for commissioning support and treatment across the UK and Scotland. Okay, so they are responsible for giving the money to organizations to provide support, provide treatment. I advise them about how to access minority communities and what they should be doing. GamCare, they run the helpline and they also provide training. Okay, some of the presentation is from them. Inspirited Minds, I did a podcast with them talking about gambling. That's available on YouTube online. And similarly, we contributed to our course. Highly recommend the first Muslim mental health course, which is by Cardiff University Islam Center. It's available online on Future Learn. Okay, you can learn a lot about Muslim mental health on there. Okay, next slide. So a couple of stats about is it a problem in Muslim communities? So like I said before, the prevalence of gambling is low compared to the white community or non-Muslim communities. However, if someone from the South Asian community was to gamble or engage in the gambling behavior, then they are 5 times more likely to experience harm from gambling as a result than anybody from, for example, the white community, okay, or white ethnicity. This is generally because of shame, stigma. If they've engaged in that behavior, which was culturally or religiously forbidden, then once they're in it, it's quite difficult to kind of say, hey, I need some support or help, okay, within the family or outside of their kind of support network. That's why the risk-taking behavior and generally gets worse and it gets more, the impact on mental health becomes more severe and detrimental. This is from a YouGov poll, okay, after people sought treatment, what did they find out? They found out that Black African people, 27%, Pakistani 25%, Indian 24% were most likely to fall into the PGSI 1+ category. So PGSI is like a screening tool, okay, which will identify on what scale are they no risk, at risk, or harmful, severe end. Okay, so 1+ we would say, or at risk. Okay, so 20%, 25%, 24% of people from that ethnic background were considered at risk. Okay, those from a Pakistani background were particularly likely to be classified as problem gamblers with a PGSI score of 8+. Okay, that is very on the severe end of the scale. I work in Greater Manchester quite a lot, Cheetham and Crumpsall areas, and the stories are frightening. Domestic homicides and gambling-related criminality, very common in our communities. Nationally, I know at least 2 instances where a husband killed a wife and underlying core reasons were gambling was involved in there. So domestic abuse and gambling go hand in hand. Okay, a lot of research around that. Gambling-related criminality, as you know, with a person can only consume so much drugs and alcohol before they pass out. With gambling, there is no limit. A person, as long as they have capital, access to money, they will continue gamble. There are websites and it's available 24/7. Okay, even when the COVID lockdown kind of took place, people were still gambling because the gambling operators created something called virtual games. So people couldn't stop, they could continue gambling on virtual sports, which aren't really real. Okay. So what is gambling harm? Okay, it is an urge to gamble continuously despite harmful consequences happening around a person. Very similar to addiction, or the kind of definition of addiction. That even if that person is aware that it's causing me financial harm, reputational harm, cultural harm, family relationship breakdown, okay, despite all this, they know they still continue, because we know that gambling affects the brain. Okay, it is a brain disorder. It rewires the brain as well. It rewires the brain. So a person becomes almost like pathological, that they are unable to control their impulses. I've got a short video, I don't know whether that will play, but it will just identify how it affects the brain. And you can see physiologically that it also changes the way the brain looks as well. So some people will experience a strong desire to impulse or gamble. So very much like, so if for example somebody smokes, then after eating they always need a fag. Okay. In the same way, people who have gambling issues will experience that. Any stresses that are affecting them, they will have an urge to gamble. Some people continue to gamble even after the people close to them suffer. Talked about that. And some people will still gamble even if they don't want to. Many times I meet people say, I hate this. Okay, I hate it. Why am I doing it to myself? But next week or next day, they'll still be doing it. Okay, because it is an addiction. I don't think the sound is working, but this is a video which just explains how gambling affects the brain, or any kind of addiction. So people will be familiar with dopamine, the chemical which is potent in addiction. Okay, any kind of addicted brain. So a healthy brain, lots of stimulation. With an addicted brain, look at what it looks like. Okay, eventually it shrinks. Okay, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making, a person who develops an addicted brain, what happens is research has shown that that part of the brain shrinks. Okay, so they can't make those rational decisions. So in the moment, in the clouded judgment, they make very high and risky kind of decisions. Now, what tends to happen is, another video which I have, which we don't have sound, but I'll explain, is that when a person is gambling, then the brain is stimulated. Now, people generally think that a person gambles because they're gambling to win. Okay, however, research shows through brain scanning that it's not the actual winning that's important, it's the taking part. So brain is more stimulated. There is no difference between winning and taking part when it comes to gambling, because the brain activity showed that the highlighted parts of the brain were similar. There were similar correlations between winning and taking part. So it's the taking part that's count, and that's what keeps people kind of going as well. So rewiring the brain. So can a person recover? Of course they can recover. A person needs to be abstinent, needs to go teetotal in order to kind of start developing new neural pathways. Very difficult, but with support, a person can retrieve that. Okay, it can be avoided again. So keep going, yeah. Yeah, you can play that. I think you can hear some of it.
By one of the world's leading experts on addiction, Professor David Nutt.
Now, a gambling addiction is not a failure of will. It is a brain disorder which is preyed upon by the gambling industry. Once you become
It's getting me excited already.
We arranged for gambler Tony Franklin to join a unique experiment by one of the world's leading experts on addiction, Professor David Nutt.
Now, a gambling addiction is not a failure of will. It is a brain disorder which is preyed upon by the gambling industry.
Honestly, I can feel my heartbeat just rising, just looking at the damn thing.
Once you become addicted, it's very, very hard to stop because you've changed your brain. Addiction is a brain that has changed to become entrained to the desires of the gambling.
So we're going to start the roulette task, Tony.
This will be the first time anyone plays something similar to a fixed odds betting terminal from inside an MRI scanner. The professor says it will reveal what's happening in Tony's brain as he uses a keypad to bet.
Got £1,000 to spend. Can I spend it all on the first spin?
When Tony is doing his task, when he's looking at the roulette wheel and he's making a decision to bet, parts of the brain get turned on, and then they can't stop. And we think there's probably a chemical basis to that. So that's what we're expecting to see, that the habit centers are overactivated in people with gambling compared with normal people like us. The brain's not very active. Maybe a little bit here. He's thinking at the, what shall I do? But it's pretty calm. Contrast that with what happens in the next one. And
That's a huge difference from
indeed
there to there.
Exactly.
So that's in a matter of seconds as well, would it be?
Exactly.
Or?
Absolutely, yes. So here we see the visual system, the back of the brain here, intensely activated. He's watching really closely. He wants that ball bearing to come down on his colour. And now we look at the emotional regions. And these are different regions activated. This is the anterior cingulate cortex. This is the insular. And these are the two areas of the brain which make sense of emotions. They may generate the emotion he's feeling of excitement. Will I win? Won't I win? And here we see very similar picture. In fact, the only real difference between winning and anticipating is this area here. And this is an area where I think we see the sense of satisfaction. Yeah, I've won. That's good. Register that. Start again. But overall, winning and waiting to see if you've won, the anticipation, they're both pretty much the same. And that's a really key point about gambling. It's not just the winning that counts. It's the taking part, and the taking part repeatedly when you don't win is as activating to a gambler as the winning. When you're sitting at a fixed odd terminal, you're getting this every 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So you can have hundreds of them. And so that process can become, in the end, it becomes kind of habitual, it becomes addictive.
The Association of British Bookmakers told us.
Okay, so that just gives a summary of what happens to the brain. So especially when dealing with people who have a gambling issue or disorder, then it's important to be mindful that they've lost that autonomy. Okay, so shouting at them, being frustrated towards them is unlikely to kind of help them exhibit help-seeking behaviors. Okay, so it's quite important we realize that they may feel like they're in control, but they're not. So our response to that is quite important. So these are a couple of stats which I'll just give you, that gambling is very prevalent. In 2005, approximately, the Gambling Act was released under Labour. Okay, it was a very loose and very, it kind of allowed gambling to increase. Okay, and today, as we can see, gambling has been normalized. We see it on the TV, we see it on our phones, we see it everywhere. The gambling operators spend approximately £1.5 billion every year on advertising. Okay, just on advertising alone. So you can understand the kind of propensity of normalcy that they're trying to promote here, that, okay, let it be a part of your everyday life, okay? Generally, if you look at the Premier League, the amount of football clubs which are being sponsored by betting companies, young people are watching this and they think this is okay. Just like in the 90s with alcohol, Liverpool, other many famous clubs used to have the kind of sponsorship. In the same way, there is now a white paper may come out soon, which is aiming to bring gambling laws in the digital age. Okay, so gambling is on the phone now and it's accessible 24/7, like I said. So the laws pretty much are outdated, okay, and the gambling companies have been allowed to get away by making a lot of money. So for example, the largest taxpayer in this country is the CEO of Bet365. She gave herself approximately over £200 million of a bonus. Okay, she's the largest taxpayer. So we can see that the government have a vested interest. Okay, so they're delaying this white paper because they're worried that where the taxes are going to come from. Okay, so they're a big contributor. However, gambling takes people's lives away, as you will be able to see here. So approximately 350,000 young people gambled age 11 to 16 in the last week. Okay, so gambling between young people is very much second to alcohol only. Yeah, 55,000 young people, 11 to 16, are identified as problem gamblers. So problem gamblers, we mean that they're experiencing harm as a result of it. Okay, 1 in 80 children regularly lose sleep worrying about a family member's gambling. Okay, 1 in 80 children, and we know that what impact gambling can have on young people, especially in the household. They're called adverse childhood experiences, okay? And they are more likely later on in life to become problematic in their gambling. 340,000 people aged 16 plus in the UK today identify as problem gamblers, okay? 4.3 million people are affected by someone else's gambling. Generally what they say is one person who is gambling, around them 6 to 10 people get affected negatively, okay? Across the UK, they're saying 2.2 to 4.3 million, yeah? 40,000 calls are made to the National Gambling Helpline every single year because people are worried, can't cope with the amount that they are gambling. I asked the person who, Gamcare, what about Muslim callers? They said they were getting far more Muslim callers, not 40,000 calls, not majority of Muslim callers, but the disproportionately more Muslim callers were calling the helpline. Okay, something to be worried about. Harmful gambling increases the risk of suicide up to 15 times. As you can imagine, if a person's under severe debt, okay, has engaged in criminality, court case coming up, may face jail time, then a lot of thoughts will go into that person's mind. Yeah, they can't speak to anybody, okay, because the shame of it, shame of letting down friends and family and the community. So it's very normal for people in that situation to start experiencing suicidal ideation, okay. So we can just think about the impact on a person's mental health just by that activity. Yeah, these are some of the risk factors, okay, that we should be mindful of, especially if we're parents, okay, that why are people likely to be led to gambling related harm, okay. Early significant win. So we take our children to, let's say, Trafford Centre, there's an entertainment arcade there, 2p machines, 10p machines, we think that's okay. But a lot of people who we speak to, who I maybe speak to, will say my first experience of gambling was at the fairground, 2p, 10p machines, okay. I won some money, tried to do it again. You know the claw that grabs the teddy? games like that, okay? So early significant win. You know, they call it beginner's luck and things like that. That's likely to lead on to more problems because they're trying to chase that win again. Money problems, ease of access, alcohol, drugs. No, they talk about comorbidities, okay? Someone has a gambling problem, most likely they might have an alcohol problem, etc., etc. It goes hand in hand, yeah? Adverse childhood experiences, okay? Those who have experienced neglect, trauma, any kind of trauma, is very mindful that later on in life they may experience issues with alcohol, drugs, etc. Mental health issues, self-esteem issues. People who generally feel quite low within themselves will play those kind of games to feel good about themselves. Mistaken beliefs, okay? Bored. So mistaken beliefs you can win, you can beat the bookies, as they say, cheat the system, okay? There's a way, okay? Let's work it out. You know, a lot of people try and beat them, but you can't beat them. Significant life events. You know, we have met people who for 70 years never gambled, ever, lost their wife, lost their wife at the age of 70 and received a large kind of inheritance or amount of money and started gambling. Okay, so someone lost somebody. Okay, grief can cause that as well if they don't manage it properly. No interest or hobbies. Parents have gambling issues and no way to monitor wins and losses. So these are some of the kind of risk factors. These are the impacts about harmful gambling. Yeah, criminality. If you just do a quick Google search, you'll find so many articles about people who had high-profile jobs, white-collar jobs, yeah, but engaged in gambling, then started to steal from their employer. Okay, that's very, very common because when they run out of their own capital, they'll borrow from friends and family. When they've exhausted all the leads from friends and family, they'll start resorting to criminality. Okay, in their mind, they're borrowing. I'll put it back. Okay, I'm borrowing. But that obviously that's criminality. And a lot of people end up in jail as a result, okay? Yeah, isolation, it causes isolation. So normally gambling activity, a lot of young lads might do it with their friends, okay, initially, around football, boxing, other sports like that, or the roulette or the casino. But slowly you can tell when a person starts developing a problem is when they start disengaging with the group and start gambling solitary, okay, alone, okay. That's when it becomes more problematic because friends, etc., aren't there to kind of collar them or curb them. Domestic abuse, relationship harm, antisocial behavior, poor physical health, self-neglect. So these are all the kind of negative impacts, okay. Debt is massive. You know, that's one of the most difficulties in dealing with people and supporting people is how do you kind of find that harmony with the amount of debt that they have. A lot of people that we speak to, one person particular, for example, 6 months they spend £100,000. Another person remortgages the property without telling the wife, okay. These are some of the implications, impacts of kind of gambling that could have on an individual, okay. Drugs, for example, a person can only consume a certain amount of drugs, okay, before they pass out. Similar with alcohol, they'll just become drunk and pass out anywhere. With gambling, a person will continue to gamble until they have the capital, they have the funds. The biggest net spend of gambling is between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 a.m., 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Okay, that's when the most money is spent. Okay, next slide, yeah. So this is quite interesting. So this was a survey that was done with people after they experienced those issues. Okay, the results are very alarming. Yeah? 3 times more likely a person who's got gambling issue, 3 times more likely to be claiming job seekers allowance. Okay, 9 times more likely to access homelessness services, 4 times more likely to be in prison, 9 times more likely to access mental health services, 6 times more likely to be in the hospital inpatient within the last 3 months. Yeah, we know people have been sectioned as a result of their gambling because they've just lost the plot. 3 times more likely to have visited their GP in the last 12 months with a mental health issue. Obviously, in our culture, when our GP is our family GP and we may even know them, some people might be unlikely to speak to their GP, but they might have other issues like depression, like anxiety, might not come out of their room, okay, headaches, alopecia, start losing their hair. So these are some of the telltale signs, you know, rashes on their body, okay. This is all due to severe stress. And, you know, this is the result that we can potentially see. This is after this, that's why early intervention is key, that before something gets bigger, it's important to arrest that kind of situation. So this is just a continuum which shows that how it can potentially progress. What social gambling, which we don't really believe in or subscribe to, can lead to harmful gambling. Okay, next slide. What I'm going to kind of go on to now is something that we might not have cottoned on to or kind of made the links to, but a lot of big gambling companies have now invested in gaming, okay, like Mr. Green, one of the big companies, and a lot of the game designers are based in India as well, ironically. But online gaming has a close, there's a convergence between gaming and gambling, and young people are particularly at risk. And it's almost like grooming young people to become fully fledged gamblers, okay? And one particular part of gaming which is problematic, as Muslims especially, but also as a society, is loot boxes, okay? These are loot crates, and a lot of games have these, like Fortnite, CSGO, particular games. FIFA has FIFA packs, okay? Most of you might have even bought FIFA packs, okay? So they're basically an in-game reward. You can buy it with in-game credits, or you can purchase it with real money, okay? They're very random, and they're virtual items. So for example, in Fortnite, it could be a skin for a gun, for a weapon, okay? Or for your avatar. It doesn't enhance the game, it just makes a person in the game look good, okay? Within FIFA, if you buy the FIFA packs, then that potentially improves your chances, okay? Unlikely people want to grind through a game, they'll just purchase the packs in the hope of getting a Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, or any kind of player. Although the odds are very, very, very high, okay? You probably have to open 1 million or so FIFA packs to get a Ronaldo or a Messi or a Mbappe. So they make it quite exciting and enticing for young people. So imagine, go back to the video in your mind which I showed you earlier about addiction and how it affects the brain, okay, the dopamine release. A young person who's 12, 9, 8 years old, opening these loot boxes, what's it doing to their brain? Okay, they've opened the pack, everything, the anticipation, the heart's racing, okay, but unfortunately they didn't really get the play desired. They quickly want to open another one. Before then, they spent a lot of money. But what happened, their brain is being trained, okay? It's being trained in the way, it's because, and that's problematic. And that's why loot boxes, I'll explain that there's a lobbying going on in government to kind of ban them, okay? Belgium, Netherlands have already banned loot boxes because they deem it as gambling, okay? Now, if you look at the Islamic perspective, is it gambling? People will say, well, I use FIFA coins, okay? But a lot of people purchase them as well. And if we go to the next slide, yeah? If you look at the definition of gambling, to stake or risk money or anything of value on the outcome of something involving chance. Now, that person is very popular and familiar. He opened a loot box, a FIFA pack, and got Ronaldo, okay? In reality, the chances are 1,000,000 to 1 or something like that, okay? And he got so excited that his chair damaged his LCD screen in the background, okay? So they make it quite enticing. And a lot of, in lockdown, EA Sports or the company who designed these loot boxes, approximately in the UK alone, made approximately, in lockdown, okay, think about how long that was, made approximately £200 million just in the UK from loot boxes, okay, kids were at home. So players often spend real money, yeah, next one. The items you received are random. Now, what's important to recognize is even games like Candy Crush, 8-Ball Pool, okay, and other games, they've monetized them. Before, in the era of Commodore 64, Sega Mega Drive, you didn't have all that. But now, games are on a different level. They've monetized games. And it's quite important to remember that some games, what happens, so for example, if you're playing 8-Ball Pool, then it'll have a kind of a roulette wheel, okay? normally if you win enough games, you'll have like free opportunities to play the roulette wheel and you'll get more coins, etc. But they'll say, well, buy another free spin for £6, etc., etc. That's gambling, okay? So they'll entice young people to do this. And I've received a referral, not only recently, somebody through Candy Crush went into fully fledged gambling, okay? So the links between gambling and gaming are very, there's a thin line there, okay? Freemium games, they purposefully make it free, but what they do is they put all these add-ons inside the game, yeah? You've got to spend to progress. Skins betting, that's something which is very, very popular. So the skins can be sold or can be gambled on Steam or third-party kind of websites. One person I met in Blackburn, young lad, semi-professional gamer, Muslim lad, he was in college, sixth form, from a very well-to-do family, missed all his exams because he was in his room all day just gaming away. And he sold one skin for £3,000, okay? Imagine that, skins. It doesn't enhance the game. It's just a cosmetic feature in a game. He had the opportunity. So it's very something to be, as parents, to be mindful of and to learn about it. It's not, oh, I don't know nothing about that, okay? But there are YouTube tutorials and stuff out there. Parent Zone is a good website to go on in order to find out actually what it is and how to keep your children safe online. Esports, you know, it's not as popular, but there's opportunities to kind of gamble on there as well. These are some articles that I picked out, okay, where families lost a lot of money through games, yeah. My son spent £3,160 in one game, yeah. A lot of times your credit card or your card details will be stored, yeah, and all you got to do is keep pressing purchase, okay. You got to be mindful that once you enter them, they don't store them. Basketball game cost us £2,000. Clash of Clans, our son spent £700. Fortnite spent £1,000. Maybe some of you can resonate with that. So it's something to be mindful of. One particular testimony from a 21-year-old who was addicted to loot boxes, okay? Loot boxes for me are quite possibly the worst thing to happen to gaming. They have a negative impact on gamers, especially young people. Many parents buy their children games. They see the PEGI 3 age rating for games like FIFA and think this will be a suitable game for their child, which isn't always the case. When I was young, I played FIFA a lot and I always wanted the best players for my team. It started becoming a problem when my friends would get a good player and I wanted to get the same cards or better. So I would go home and spend all my pocket money on FIFA points. Only in the last few years I've realized how much I was wasting my real money on a fictional currency that would realistically only last you until the next game came out. This is a serious issue. It is underage gambling, and I don't see how you could describe it any other way. So even those who aren't part of a faith, etc., they deem it as gambling as well. As I said, the government white paper is coming out soon. Probably in that it won't be classed. It's not regulated as gambling, okay? So that's the gaming and gambling part covered. Now, stock and crypto. So focusing more on the crypto. Now, within lockdown, there was a big kind of push towards people investing in crypto. KSI, for example, celebrities were investing in it, and it was like, oh, a quick way to kind of make money on all these different coins. Now, it is a very volatile, I'm not an expert in it, but very volatile market, okay, as you know. And there are apps designed that can keep you fixated on it every single day, every hour of the day, okay. You can check it anytime, invest in it anytime, okay, it's available. Now, the difficulty with that is that a lot of people in our kind of occupation, our work, we have supported people who have crypto addiction. There is a thing as crypto addiction. In Scotland, especially Castle Craig, there is a rehab facility for people who have developed a crypto addiction because it is Islamically, you could say, okay, it's not gambling, etc. It's very much like gambling, okay? It's very much like gambling. Day trading is gambling in itself because how the mental health impacts of it are very similar. I know a person, from the community who, you know, mashallah, very wouldn't engage in crypto, wouldn't do anything else, gambling, etc. But he also developed like deep mental health issues as a result, because people, when they lose, they start spending money that they can't afford to lose. They start chasing losses, okay? They start borrowing money. Then, whilst they're working, they're doing it as well. So preoccupation comes. So there are a lot of things to factor in, okay, when it comes to that. This is a particular, I don't know if people have heard of fan token, okay? So the global football kind of companies exhausted a lot of ways to kind of increase their revenue, especially in the Asian market, okay? So what they then developed was fan coins, okay? So people, for example, supporters could buy these coins, and with these coins, they get a little bit of a voice, okay? However, fan tokens are like, they propose them as shares in clubs, okay, without any dividend or kind of legal protection. Football clubs were promising to give them access to fan-related membership perks like voting on club decisions, rewards, merchandise, and unique experiences. However, the reality is that they give you a vote on what songs are played in the stadium, okay, or a 5% discount in the merchandise shop. Nevertheless, football fans tend to be extremely passionate about the teams, and many people might be tempted to buy the kind of fan token. I know Messi released one as well. However, as fan tokens are a form of cryptocurrency, they can be bought and sold, and their values can rise and fall depending on supply and demand. Generally, small cryptocurrencies like these can be incredibly volatile. So just like Bitcoin, okay, we heard of what happened to that. So it can be a very volatile market, and unless you know what you're doing, you know, what it's purported and portrayed as is in reality not that, okay? So it's important to do your research, okay, and be aware. A lot of people that we support from cryptocurrency, something which they felt was very innocent, okay, went on to take part in hardcore, fully fledged casino-style gambling, okay? So the lines are very blurred at times, okay? So this is some article which I kind of grabbed. KSI lost 7 million, okay, never did it again after that. So it's very volatile. A lot of people lose their millions through cryptocurrency trading, okay? So in terms of what day trading, like I said, is gambling. I would avoid it unless a person is a professional, knows what they're doing. It becomes very much like all-consuming. Okay, gambling, people who have a problem is all-consuming. They can't focus on their family life or their work, etc., or their faith. Okay, in the same way, that particular crypto-style trading, they make it like that. Okay, and they've learned a lot of ideas from the gaming and gambling kind of industry. Okay. Most importantly, advice and support. Where is that located? Okay, so especially for young people, so those who are 11 and above, a big deal is that program which kind of gives a lot of advice and support. Okay, if you go online, you can find a lot of information on that. Most importantly, the next slide will give you some information on, so the first phone number there is the National Gambling Helpline. So anybody who has an issue about their own gambling or somebody else's, okay, somebody else's, they can ring that number and get some advice, okay. And this particular email address there is for parents and teachers, okay. So, or the person themselves who's 11 and above. And what they can do is support people who even have a gaming problem, okay? So a lot of young people just be gaming all day long, okay? And parents don't know how to manage them, how to deal with them. There's a professional support service which is available, okay? It's confidential. So these details, I can provide them to Maulana Sabo. I can make it available quite freely. There's a phone number there as well. So any parents who even just want advice on how to manage their child who is excessively gaming and despite many interventions isn't getting any better, school studies have kind of fallen through, that they can get that support and help, or just go to that website, okay? And that's myself. So like I said before, I work in the South Asian communities across the Northwest, okay? However, I do receive referrals from across the country, places like Birmingham, etc., people wanting support or just general advice. Not a miracle worker, but what I can do is work with families in trying to create the best approach for somebody. Okay, normally what we do is get the danda out, let's beat him up, or send him India, send him Pakistan. No, there's a way to deal with people, and the way is, firstly, in order to help somebody with an issue like that, you've got to be non-judgmental, okay? Not judge them on their past mistakes, what they've done, or you're a father of four, your father of oh, this is what you ought to hafiz, you're this, you're that, etc. Because what that does is shame a person, and for that person, for that individual to remain in denial is better. Denial is a coping strategy. So a lot of times in town you'll see all these people walking around and clearly they've got an issue. But denial is a coping mechanism, because the moment they say, I've got a problem, they've got to deal with the weight of all the issues that they've created through their gambling or through their drugs or alcohol. So it's better to deal with it with compassion, okay, and non-judgmental, okay, and empathy, okay. It might not seem kind of how will that work, but it does work, okay. Eventually, you know, Allah is the one who guides, okay, but eventually that person, you know, will be open. Because if we kind of ask somebody all the time, questioning them where they were, what they're doing, etc., etc., give me your bank statement, do this, or just block all access. Today, people can find all means and ways to gamble, okay. One person in Blackburn, you know, they had a person who was helping them stop gambling. They literally incarcerated him in his own home, okay? Literally no access to anything, but still found a way to gamble. He got a job in the library, and after that, he was borrowing money of people in the library and getting to gamble. So that's why you've got to work on the motivation of an individual, okay? There's a technique called motivational interviewing. There's a way to speak to people, to help them, to support them. But it's best to go to the professionals, to the people who know what they're doing, okay? So it's something which is prevalent in our communities, okay? It's there, disproportionately there. And a lot of times people who are coming to us are on the end of the scale where they lost everything, okay? Or they're about to lose everything. So before that happens, early intervention is quite important. So in our families, so if sisters are listening at home, worried about somebody, get in touch, email confidentially, and advice and support will be given, okay? If you have any questions, please, happy to take questions. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah to Hafiz Sahab. Very important, pertinent topic. Some may have questions. If you have any questions, the floor is open. Many things were discussed, general gambling, then specific to in-game gambling, crypto, etc. One of the questions here was, are FIFA packs allowed? So I think Hafiz Sahab covered that topic anyway. So because you don't know actually what you're buying and you just want your gold star players and your Messis and your Ronaldo, and obviously to buy that and then you won't get it, then you buy another one, you won't get it. So it's just constant, you're playing a game of chance, so they won't be permissible. Any questions in regards to this topic? Jay, Hafiz.
Yes.
From a perspective of trying to tackle the issue, if we know that these people are more likely to divert this kind of thing, is that something that should be working on?
So are you talking about the risk factors? Yeah. So I think it's quite important to recognize that adverse childhood experiences and things like that. So for example, especially around young people, if they've experienced any kind of trauma or neglect, etc., then support should be given. So for example, if we're educators, if we're teachers, etc., so finding things for young people to do. So boredom was one of them, yeah, where young people, so for example, if we go outside just to the high street, there'll be a lot of gambling stores located. So the advertising is there, is very prevalent, okay? It's on their phone, it's everywhere. So in terms of, I think, occupying young people in meaningful activities is a way to prevent them, okay? And especially education. So keeping kind of open conversations, okay? So because I remember doing talks in schools. So in a school, for example, a class of 30, there could be about 10 Muslims there. They never talk, okay? They never say anything. However, in a gathering like this, they might be tempted to ask a couple of questions. So I think gatherings like this are quite important so that they can make informed choices. So when they know the facts and etc. A lot of times we talk from a Islamic perspective, a Dini perspective, but don't actually go into the actual harms that are there, you know. And because if they are aware of the harms, you know, in light of Quran and Hadith, etc., then that goes quite far in kind of preventing those issues kind of occurring. And I think in terms of a community, it's quite important to, so for example, in the town centre, we know the challenges there. A lot of stores have shut down. And for these gambling operators, very easy to kind of apply for a license to open a shop there. So as a community, we can do something for our local council in order to kind of put an objection in planning permission, for example, for those outlets to kind of stop opening, okay? So that as a community, that's something that we can do. And also online, there are consultations where we can submit our thoughts about gambling and its impact in our communities, okay? Because although they are less likely to gamble from these communities, the harm is frightening, okay? So across Lancashire, we'll see, you know, the cases are very severe, and that's why there's in Gamble Aware, whom we advise, they have 3 strategic priority groups, okay? And one of these groups are South Asian community. They're right up there in terms of the harms that they're experiencing. And the main reason is that there's just no education about it. So in our madrasa, in our syllabus, there should be something on this, and not just cursory covering it that it's haram, etc., or you're wasting money. Doing a talk like this would be quite important, a workshop, okay? Getting somebody in to do a workshop will be quite impactful in that sense. I think what's lacking is that kind of education around it, okay?
So young boys could concentrate and not have their own conversations. Jazakallah. Any other questions? Ji.
Can you buy coins? So if you buy coins to then buy FIFA packs, is that what you mean? I didn't quite understand the question, sorry. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So I don't know exactly how it works in that respect. So you could buy coins, and then you could buy in. So for example, let's talk about Roblox, yeah, Robux. Somebody purchases something with the Robux. It's just cosmetic features in a game. Okay, you're not gambling. You're just buying stuff in the game, etc. FIFA packs is explicitly you're buying something, and there's no. There's a chance you'll get something, but there's no guarantee. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at there. Yeah. So you could buy a currency, an in-game currency. That's fine. Okay. A lot of times in the game you could win some few coins. Okay, and with those particular coins you could buy a FIFA pack, but you've not spent your own money or wagered something. Okay, or staked something.
But then he said you always get the addiction of buying things. You just constantly want to add. So although there might be no impermissibility within the buying, it's just the fact that you buying something which you don't need, and it'll definitely come under the hukum of israf and wasting and extravagance. So although the permissibility may be there, but the karaha and the dislike will most definitely be there as well, because it's just squandering and wasting your money for something which is obviously of no specific benefit whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? We've got a few questions here from the box before we move on to them. Any questions related to the topic? Any question for yesterday's topic? We didn't give a chance for any open questions for yesterday's topic as well. They're both related, they're both regarding addiction, and they both are mentioned hand in hand in the Quran, al-khamr wal-maysir. So, any questions? No? Okay, that's fine. Moving on to these questions. Can you explain the different types of sadaqat? Sadaqah you can split into two categories, wajib and nafil. In wajib means something which is compulsory, so not differentiating between what is farz and what is actual wajib. Wajib means compulsory and necessary. So you have wajib sadaqah and then you have nafil sadaqah. Wajib sadaqah includes zakat, in the sense that it's compulsory, but it's more emphasized than obviously every other type of sadaqah. Then you have other wajib sadaqah, such as if a person makes a vow that if such and such a thing happens, he'll give £10 in sadaqah. If I pass my driving test, I'll give £10 in sadaqah. If I get all 9s in my GCSEs, I'll give £99 in sadaqah. If I give, something like this, then again this is wajib. A person will need to give that once the condition is fulfilled. Similarly, if there's any types of kafara, breaking a fast, and they are unable to do the 60 fasts, or breaking an oath, then they have to do the kafara for that as well. Similarly, sadaqatul fitr, which we give at the end of Ramadan, fidya of your fasts, similarly fidya of any salat. There's one more which I just came. It's Qurbani, if a person hasn't done his Qurbani and they need to do qadha of the Qurbani, then to give that sadaqah as that, or anything else. So these are the wajib sadaqah. Okay, this is all comes in the category of wajib sadaqah. The ruling for wajib sadaqah is that they need to be given to poor individuals, Muslims, who are poor and are eligible to be given sadaqah because they don't have the threshold of nisab or anything excess to the threshold of nisab. And then you have nafil sadaqah. Nafil sadaqah we can also call lillah. They're both the same thing. There's no difference between the two. So that is anything, you're walking down and, says somebody, just there's a box lying there and you think, oh, let me just put some money inside, so you give that. Or, for example, you're going to go for your driving test, so you think, oh, let me put some money in, for the driving test before I go. So that's your nafil sadaqah lillah. Or, just any other, you say, like, just to safeguard yourself from any illnesses or any calamities, etc. You just give some charity just as a general basis. So this is all nafil sadaqah. Somebody sitting there in the street and you say, expect some change, please, mate. So, you're going past and you say, yeah, no problem, I'll spend some change. and sitting outside Aldi or whatever, and they give him a bit of money there. So that's all nafil sadaqah, also classified as lillah, and that can be given to anybody. It doesn't have to be given to a Muslim, and you can also give nafil sadaqah into projects as well, which are not owned by individuals. So masjid construction, madrasa construction, wells, building of orphanages, etc., etc. Nafil sadaqah can be given in there. Hope that clarifies everything. Yes, any questions in regards to that before I move on? Subhanallah. Andrew Tate is out of the prison. The prison. What do you think? It's a top G in it. So, if a person's been in prison without any evidence and there's nothing been, I'm not saying he's guilty, I'm not saying he's not guilty, that's not for me to decide. But anybody who's been imprisoned and there's no charges really yet, there's no evidence yet, and he's just been put under prison for, phoning the pizza guy at the wrong time. Okay, Yusuf. And revving a few cars. So, obviously, anybody who's unlawfully in prison, they shouldn't be in prison. You make dua that they are released. And that's everything, isn't it? Next question. What's your thoughts on KSI saying Paki? I'm bare offended because I'm a Paki myself. Subhanallah. A person should be very careful of the language that they use. Okay? Now, what you need to understand about these influencers, these YouTubers, these celebrities, the only thing they're worried about is being cancelled. Insan. So whenever they come out with an apology, then just take it with a pinch of salt. If they really meant it, then he wouldn't really say it. And the guys that were with him laughing away after he said it and going, he smashed it today, and then they all come back and apologize. If you really thought that he did bad, they'll say then, you just say, ooh, he shouldn't have said that. You understand? The reaction they gave was a reaction of happiness. He really pulled it off today. You understand? But he's on, and obviously before, it wasn't exact. I don't think it was a live stream or anything. So they always, before posting on the video, they go through it, they vet the video, they think anything controversial in there, and then they post it. So when they came across this, they know, okay, it'll probably pull a few strings, but it won't be that bad. It's not as bad as saying, Nazi or something like that, or something anti-Semitic or something like that. So we'll probably get away with it. But there was a backlash, and obviously then had to come out and sit behind his table and put the serious face saying, I'm sorry for all that I've offended. So the point is, firstly, a mu'min and as a believer, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has always told us that a person needs to be extremely particular in their speech. A person needs to ensure that they don't offend anybody. They don't say anything wrong. They don't hurt anybody's feelings. This is the characteristics of a believer. This is the way we should be. So if somebody does contrary to that, then obviously they're doing something wrong. We shouldn't be doing it, and nobody else should be doing it. So that's what we need to understand. We shouldn't be saying anything which is offensive to anybody, and that's what we expect from everybody else as well, that you shouldn't say anything which is offensive to anybody. There's no such thing, never mind in Islam, there's no such thing universally as freedom of speech. It just does not exist. Nobody says freedom of speech exists in its absolute sense. The reality is that under the guise of freedom of speech, you have freedom to offend. And then it's not freedom of speech, it's freedom to offend, and freedom to offend those communities who allow you to offend. If we don't allow you to offend, then it's racism. If we don't allow you to offend them, then it's sexism, it's misogynism, and it's anti-Semitic. But if we allow you to offend, then it's fine. There's no such thing as Islamophobic. It's fine, no problem. So as Muslims, we need to understand that we need to be very particular in the things we say. We don't offend. And even when we speak amongst our friends as well, we don't say anything which is offensive to somebody else. And it's not, he's my best mate, it's fine, he doesn't mind. No, sometimes he does mind, but he just doesn't want to say it. And so we shouldn't speak in a way which is offensive. Taha Asmal, did you put something inside? Are you sure? It's got your name on it. It says, forget about this, give me pizza and chips. And it says your name as well. Somebody set you up, Taha. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take 7 days to create the world? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have created the entire universe in an instant. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does everything through wisdom. And what are the hikmats of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we cannot truly understand. But one hikmat which we do understand is that a person should do things slowly, gradually, systematically, not just, go out gung-ho and just, do everything. Yeah, I'm going to do this now and do this. And then after that, a person gets completely worn out and they get tired. Obviously, وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says himself, we didn't get tired. We created the entire universe. Some, unfortunately, individuals, they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day he was tired, so he rested. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, answering these individuals, says, وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ. No, we didn't get tired. We did this for whatever reasons, but we did this knowingly and not because we couldn't do it in one day, or we were unable to do it in one day. إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just needs to desire and wish that it happens, and immediately it will happen. He doesn't even need to say that happen and take place, or kun, and it will just happen immediately. So why did Allah knows why, and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took not 7 days but 6 days. But one of the reasons, or one of the hikmats we can understand, is that a person should do things gradually and not just try to do it all at once. I am really enjoying these programs. Please carry on. Jazakumullahu khaira. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make them beneficial for everybody, inshallah. It's very good that we have a good turnout as well, and everybody comes, listens. The main objective of these programs is that we learn regarding deen, we understand, and accordingly we act upon the advice which are shared. So the objective isn't just to hold the program, the objective is to try to bring into our lives what we learn and what we listen. If you eat a sweet that changes the color of your tongue, and your tongue is a different color after Sahri, is your fast valid? Should you be eating sweets for Sahri? That's the first question. Why are you eating sweets for Sahri? It's not the best time to eat sweets. For Sahri time, you should be eating something nutritious. Having some milk, having some cereal, having some toast, something which will carry on. Or if some people like a full-on meal, bit of lawan rotla, then bismillah, bit of amdud debat or something like that. Those Bengalis that are here, they'll understand that. Everybody else won't understand. Amdud debat. If you've got any Bengali neighbors, ask them to pass it over for you, inshallah, you'll enjoy it. Am is mango, dud is milk, and bat is rice. And they mix it all up and they have it. It's a speciality for Ramadan, specific for Ramadan Sahri time. So anyway, you should be having nutritious food. But let's say, okay, you have had a sweet which has changed the color of your tongue. Then as long as you're not eating the sweet after Sahri, is fine. You put it in your mouth and you finished it before Sahri time ended. And after that, the taste, the color of your tongue hasn't thingy, come back to normal as well yet, it doesn't matter, it's no big deal. There's a lot of people asking for burgers and chips, burgers and chips, burgers and chips. Just to let you know, today is burgers and chips. He is. He's happy, mashallah. Brother Sajid's son, where is he? Mashallah. How does the Imam make niyat when performing salat? The Imam when performing salat just needs to make the niyat of salat and that is it. He doesn't even need to make the niyat that he is an Imam and that people are following him. To the extent that, let's say, 2 of us walk into the masjid and namaz is done and we both need to perform Zahar salat. So we go into the wuzu khana, I've done wudu and say, okay, I'm going to perform my Zahar now. So I've started my Zahar salat and then I've started and then you just come along behind me and just join up behind me, Allahu Akbar, and just tap me on the shoulder that I'm behind you. So that's fine. I didn't even need to make an intention beforehand and you can just join up after. As long as I'm praying obviously the farz and you're praying the farz as well. According to Hanafi fiqh, according to other fiqh, then there's more leeway and gunjaish in there. But according to Hanafi fiqh, the salat obviously needs to be the same. So if I come in performing my Zahar first and you come in after and you know that I'm performing my Zahar first, then you can just join me. Although I had no intention of performing Jama'ah, but you've joined in the salat, the Jama'at will be fine and I can continue the salat as usual. Yes, if there are women that are joining in the salat, then according to a group of fuqaha, the niyat for the imam is necessary. According to the other group, it depends on certain circumstances, but according to one group of fuqaha, it is necessary that a person makes the intention that there are women performing salat behind him. Yep. Sorry? In terms of the 2 individuals. The woman as well. Okay, if there's 2 individuals performing salat, then the imam will stand and the one muqtadi will stand on his right hand side, just slightly behind him as precaution, because the person is not allowed to come in front and ahead of the imam in terms of position. So he'll just, if he's in line with the imam, it will suffice, but as precaution, a person should stand just a little bit behind the imam so that he doesn't edge ahead of the imam. That's if 2. If then a 3rd individual joins in, then the imam, if there's space for the imam to move forward, then the imam moves forward and the 2nd guy joins and stands up to the 1st guy that was already there on the right of the imam. If there's no space for the imam to move forward, or the imam is not aware that a 3rd person has come, then that 3rd person can pull the 2nd person back and they'll both stand behind and perform salat there. If there's no space for them to stand behind, the room is little tiny room and there's no space for 2 people to stand one ahead of the other and do jama'at, then the 3rd person can stand on the left of the imam and perform salat like that. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu with Alqama and Aswad rahimahullah, his 2 students, performed salat like this because the room was quite cramped. There was no space for them to perform one in front of the other, so one was on the right and the other was on the left. If a woman is performing salat in the jama'ah, then it is important that the woman is away from the sufuf of the men, to the extent that completely away, that even none of her limbs come into line with the limbs of any of the men folk whilst in salat. So for example, a man is performing salat and they say this is the first saf, then the woman needs to be a full saf behind, so that when she does sajda, she does not come into the line of the men's saf. So even if she's in sajda and her head, part of her head or something comes into the saf of the men and is in line with the feet or something of the men in the saf ahead, then the namaz will break of the men. So the woman needs to be completely behind the sufuf of the men. If it's only the husband and the wife doing jama'at, for some reason, whatever reason, then the man will stand ahead, the woman will stand completely behind. Yes? Sorry?
What about when the namazes where you'd ask to be prayed out loud?
Right.
So if a person's praying by themselves, they're not going to pray out loud.
Yeah, then as soon as a person joins in, then he'll just raise his voice and carry on the tilawat. So if I'm halfway through my Surah Fatiha, and then somebody joins in, I just ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim as-sirata and just carry on. Understand? If they're of another fiqh, then it's fine. You don't need to tell him anything. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Yeah. So if you're performing your sunnats, obviously somebody else from another fiqh, Shafi fiqh or whatever, they come and you're praying your sunnats and he taps behind you and joins you thinking that you're praying your Zohar Farz or something, then obviously you're praying sunnats, he's praying Farz, but for them it's okay. So you'll just, obviously if it's a Zohar Salat, then you just need to do your takbirats loudly. So Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamidah. If it's a night namaz, so you're praying your sunnahs of Maghrib, for example, or you're praying your sunnahs of Isha, for example, then just start your qiraat loud. It's fine, not an issue. Yep. Alhamdulillah, I have really enjoyed these youth conferences. Please can we do it also after Ramadan? Inshallah, we should try, maybe not as frequently, he said that whether it's 2 times a month, maybe not 2 times a month, not even weekly, maybe every 2 months we can possibly do something like this. But there needs to be an appetite. The thing is that we have the programs in Ramadan and then we have programs outside Ramadan as well. It's not like we don't have programs outside Ramadan. We have weekly programs as well. We have monthly programs as well. We have specific youth circles as well. But the issue is that we don't get these numbers outside Ramadan. And that doesn't mean we don't continue. Inshallah, we shall continue and we will. But the point is that you continue coming as well. We'll continue delivering, but then you need to continue coming as well, inshallah. So it works both ways. I will stick to our side of the agreement. You have to stick to your side of the agreement. Inshallah. So inshallah, if you say that we'll carry on, yes, inshallah we'll carry on. So we'll carry on, but then you have to carry on coming as well, inshallah. Is so smoking makruh? Yes. You shouldn't be smoking. Do you get the same reward for second Jum'ah as the first Jum'ah? No. The first Jum'ah is the main Jum'ah. I mentioned this last week. I mentioned in the Jum'ah as well this week to the actual second Jum'ah guys. I said, look, you guys need to come in the first Jum'ah. I told them. And I'm going to tell them again after as well, remind them again. Because it was Good Friday, innit? So there's some weren't even there, which was good. But still it was quite full. Even though it was Good Friday, no college, Good Friday, we still had this whole full completely. So I was there in the second surf, the whole full, and a large amount of people in that room. There was a few in this room as well. There wasn't that many in this, there's a few though. But there's quite a few in that room. And this is second Jummah on a Good Friday when most people are off work. And there's many youngsters there which were college age, so they wouldn't have been in college because it's off. So there's no excuse to come to second Jummah. No excuse for second Jummah. You need to come first Jummah. And always remember this, the larger the congregation, the larger the reward. So in first Jummah, obviously the congregation is massive, so the reward will be much more larger as well and greater. So we need to keep this in mind. They have indicated from outside that food is ready. We've got a few questions. What did you say, Khalid? Carry on, or shall we wrap up? You got a few minutes? Chalod. Please can you talk about how bad smoking and vaping is? Smoking and vaping is very, very bad, obviously. Vaping, look, we need to understand, in regards to vaping, people say vaping, I don't know, I think it was touched on it yesterday as well. The thing is, look, when smoking started, then before they were giving everybody free cigarettes. Smoke, 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 smoke. Everybody was getting free cigarettes. You join the army, you get a free deck of 20. Everybody, and now I think, how much are they? £10 for one, if he wants to confess. Abu? 20 deck? £11. Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata. £11 for a deck of 20. Subhanallah. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Those that are smoking, 10 a day, 20 a day, that's like £50, £60 a week. You're just burning, basically. So the point I was making was that smoking, initially they were giving out free cigarettes. They said, don't worry, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, harms are minimal, it's okay. And then, now, going back around possibly 10 years max, really, they started advertising on our local UK package, smoking harms and the lungs and whatever, and they banned advertising and they put them behind the shutters and everything. This is probably going about 10 years, have you sir? I don't think no any more than that probably, maybe a little bit more. No, I think. Yeah, within the last 10 years. So this was going back in World War II, so in the 1940s, and nearly 60 plus years later, they realized the true harms of smoking, and then they started to clamp down. So similarly, at the moment, they say vaping, it's fine, it's no big issues, major issues, it's all fine, no problem. And then 50 years down the line, then the true effects of this will become apparent, and then they'll say, oh no, we need to stop vaping and this and that, and then they probably bring out something else, alternative, as always, because they need the tax, they need the money, they need the economy to run, because that's the main thing about it. So the thing is, there's a little bit of harm. So don't do it, simple as. Anything which harms yourself, why? Why do something? It's peer pressure, fitting in with the crowd, and just the enjoyment, thrill. It's not worth it. It's not worth your own health. It's not worth your money as well. That money can be spent elsewhere. I'm just wondering how tall Adam alayhi salam was. And how old was he? Adam alayhi salatu wasalam was 90 feet tall. 60 zira, and which was 90 feet tall. And that's how tall we will be in Jannah, inshallah, when we go there. How old was he? He had an age of 1000, and then a story took place. There's no time to go into it, otherwise Khalid will shout, and so will you lot that the burgers have gone cold. So he gave 40 years away, so he ended up having a life of 9,060. What man about? 960. I'm good at maths. I got a good maths question yesterday. What acts of worship can a woman do while she's on her menses? The fuqaha state that at the time of salat, sit on your musalla. You can't perform salat, sit on the musalla or sit in position facing the qibla 5 minutes, every salat time, or 2-3 minutes. Do some dhikr, do some tasbihat, durood sharif, make some dua, etc. You can't recite Quran, you can't perform salat, but that doesn't stop you doing anything else. Sit in that position that you perform in salat, in at-tahiyyat, and engage in dhikr, tasbihat, dua, read a book, Islamic book, Ta'aleem, Hadith book, Fazal Amal, or Riyadus Salihin, or something like this, or read anything else which will give you that spiritual motivation. But sit in a salat position so it keeps that momentum going of salat as well. I think that's everything, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khaira. Inshallah, we'll continue next week. Inshallah, just one very important announcement just before everybody goes, that please help cleaning up as well. We've got just the same few handful of volunteers. Please try to show a bit of help whilst cleaning up as well. So not just, have that burger disappear and that's it. We've got a few questions online as well, and which reminds me, I've got a few emails come through as well. I'll carry on with those as well. When can a musalla be classed as a masjid? A musalla is classed as a masjid, so those that want to go to it, they can go to it. Those that want to remain seated here, you can. That's fine. A musalla can be classed as a masjid when the responsible individuals of that musalla made the intention of the masjid, simple as. Okay, so if in my house I say and actually make this intention that this house of mine is now a masjid, then my house will become a masjid. Simple. There's no stipulation of size, locality, whatever. Anything can be stipulated. So in James Street, they've not made the intention of a masjid, so it's not a masjid. If tomorrow the management decide that, okay, James Street Al-Hidayah Center is going to be a masjid now, and this is a masjid, Shari'i masjid, and they just say that, right, this is now a Shari'i masjid, simple, it will immediately become a Shari'i masjid, and the rules of the masjid will apply to that. And it's important that a person understands the implications of this, because now the masjid can't be sold. Now the rules of women entering the masjid during the certain times of the month will apply, etc. So it's important that a person does it. What happens is, at times we've had these situations, so very close to home to be honest, that you've had a community which have bought a place, a very small little place, which is sufficient for the community at that time. And then going down 30, 40 years, now they've outgrown that little room or that little house, and there's no scope for expansion because you've got, you know, houses everywhere. You can't expand, you can't buy anything, there's no expansion. So now you're stuck with it. Now if you build another masjid, that's fine, but this is still a masjid. What do you do with this now? You can't flog it off, you can't sell it. Namaz still needs to be performed in it. So then you start backpedaling and you can say this and that. So it's important that before you make the intention of a masjid, think long term that is this actually practical that we make this a masjid, or shall we keep it as a musalla for now, and then we'll see if there's later on 10 years, 30 years down the line, there's scope that we can build here, we can get next door, we can expand, and maybe there's a car park there, we can buy into that, whatever. Now let's make an intention of the masjid, let's expand it. Oh no, we can't. So let's just sell this off as a normal property because it was a masjid anyway, just a musalla, and now let's buy something which is more fit for purpose now. So it's important that if we ever are in this situation of establishing a community hub, Islamic community hub, a masjid, musalla, etc., then we keep this in mind. Consult local ulama, muftiyan kiram as well. What should one do if a person has committed zina? I think we've done this previously. A person should make tawbah, etc. Does your salat and dua not get accepted for 40 days if you take drugs, balloons, THC, etc.? The rule is any haram substance which a person takes will then cause that individual's ibadat to not be accepted. Now let's understand this point carefully, because you get a lot of questions, people asking that, oh, is my namaz accepted, what do I do? Firstly, if it's by mistake, you didn't know that it was haram. I got a phone call from somebody just before Ramadan. She said, Masahab. I said, what? Because big issue. I said, what? I said, I'm leading Tarawees. I said, okay, and he says, I ordered KFC. Guess what? From the wrong one. He goes, and what do I do now? I'm leading Taraweeh, so I'm not saying KFC is halal, by the way. So I'm not giving any fatwas. If you're eating it, fabiha. If you don't eat it, fabiha. It's up to you. But he goes, you know, what do I do? So firstly, if it's a genuine mistake, you make tawbah, istighfar, Allah inshallah will forgive. If it's not a genuine mistake, and you're actually taking it, you continue taking it, whatever, then your ibadat isn't accepted. Your ibadat not being accepted means, you guys go eat. You guys go eat. No. 1, 2, 3, go. You're going home. Hurry up. Go over there. Abdurrahman, go. One is acceptance in the sense that the responsibility has been fulfilled. And the other is acceptance in the sense that a person gets reward for this. For example, I'm performing salat and I perform salat without wudu. Is my namaz accepted? No. Will I have to repeat it again? Yes. But let's say I perform my salat with wudu and facing Qibla, everything, but I'm performing it, you know, with the intention that, you know, must have standing there, so let me, you know, show I'm a buzurg in it. So Allahu Akbar. this and that, you're full khushu, khudu, but throughout my mind is there, Masab's looking at me and he's going to think, yeah, mashallah, look at him praying the salat. Is my namaz done in the sense that, let's say it was a Dhuhr salat, then has the Dhuhr been performed? Yes. Will it need to be repeated? No. Will I get reward for this? No. Why? Because I didn't do it for Allah, I did it for Mausab. So I'm not going to get any reward for it. But my namaz is done in the sense that I won't need to repeat my Dhuhr. So acceptance is of two types. One is being correct, being sahih. And the other is being accepted in the court of Allah in the sense that He will reward you for it. So when a person takes a haram substance, then his namaz is not accepted, means that his namaz is done. He can tick the box that my namaz is done, but he won't gain any reward for the namaz. He won't gain any reward for the namaz. Can Tarawih be led by women for women? Makruh jama'at of only women is something which is disliked by the fuqaha. Women should not perform their own jama'at. Women should perform their own salat individually in their own homes as well. I'm concerned the coverage of crypto, unlike other gambling products, did not make it easy for the audience to determine is it permissible or not. Permissibility of crypto is something which the fuqaha are still discussing. Majority are still on the opinion that it's too vague, there's too much volatility, there's no basis behind it, really tangible assets behind it, so therefore they don't deem it permissible and therefore a person should avoid it. There are a few certain muftiyan that may give permissibility, but because of the volatility aspect, as Hafiz Sahib discussed, that one should be very, 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 very careful of how they invest in it. Should they invest in it? It's best personally that person doesn't invest in it. In a Jamaat where there are men and women present, should a physical barrier be placed behind the men and to separate the two? Yes, women should be segregated fully away from the men. So the segregation is there. Unfortunately, you get masajids where it's not happening and things like this. Slowly, then women will then end up in places in America. Women end up joining the saf of the men now, and there's no before it used to be segregated fully. Then it says, why putting us segregated? Let us come into the same masjid without segregation, but we pray at the back. And I say, why are you keeping us at the back for? Let us stand shoulder to shoulder with the men, innit? So the men say, Bismillah, Astaghfirullah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Abu, careful. Some masjid follow Saudi for moon sighting, others follow local moon sighting, follow whichever one you want. Jazakumullah. It causes a divide in my family. You get 2 Eids, you get 2 biryanis, something to celebrate for, inshallah. You have Saudi biryani on one day and then you can have the Moroccan biryani on the other day, inshallah. It's a difference. There's no hard and fast. Whichever one you want to take, Bismillah, no problems, inshallah. That's everything. Any questions from here? Sure. Medical healthcare insurance, travel insurance or just general insurance? Yeah, medical healthcare. I don't think it is permissible. Medical insurance. If there's specific scenarios, specific cases, you've got terminal illnesses, etc., or major illnesses, then consult a mufti, put your situation in front of him. Maybe he might give, but as a general rule, no. Well, if you're not paying for it, if it's provided from your company free of charge as a service, then there's no problem in that. But this is you. I'm assuming that you're saying that you're taking it out. So you're giving, you're contributing to it. So if you don't contribute, will you get it? No. Because there is somebody just giving you a service from their own side, that's absolutely fine. The problem with insurance is that you're paying into something which you're not getting really something possible. You know, you're paying insurance, your car doesn't get, your money's just gone. Do you understand? So it comes under this qimar and chance and gambling and stuff like that. So it comes under that category, which is why the fuqaha say that you can't go. Short sleeve jabbas should be avoided. Unless you're covering your forearms, then that's fine. With a top underneath and then you're wearing your short sleeve jabba on top, then that defeats the object. Death in service, I think, is possibly okay as far as I know. I'm not sure specifics. I'm not in a position to answer. Huh? No. The question is, does mazi is pre-seminal fluid. Bismillah, last question. Mazi is pre-seminal fluid and mani is actual sperm. So does mazi necessitate ghusl the same way mani does? So the ruling is no, mazi will just break your wudu and will not necessitate ghusl. You'll just need to perform wudu. If the area has been dirty and soiled, then wash the area and then perform wudu. And mani, obviously, ghusl becomes first. TK, inshallah, will continue next week. I don't know, the next week's topic may be a bit longer, so it depends if there'll be time for Q&As after. We'll see, inshallah. جزاكم الله سبحانك الله وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك اللهم ونتوب إليك. Next week.